Rec Yard, Women's Prison Podcast, where we are live on the Rec Yard every Wednesday night. Hey, here we are, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we are live on the Rec Yard Women's Prison Podcast. I'm Marci Marie.
I'm Toonche.
How are you, Toonche?
I'm good. It's been a very busy week, I feel like. I can't believe it's almost already Thursday, so there's a lot going on this week.
It has been a busy week, and so we should jump right in with the weekly recap.
I agree. Let's do it.
So, what's been busy for you, Toonche?
Yeah, let's talk first and foremost about how we have been just overwhelmed with media requests to talk about the heat, to talk about the digital rollout of the mail, which we will discuss this evening. So I've just been spending an enormous amount of time scheduling calls with media. Had several today, and not just the stuff we've been talking about, stuff at county jails, which we need to do a whole episode just on county jail stuff. It's very different than prison. But what about you?
Well, the same with the media, and it's exciting that hasn't died down yet, because honestly, Texas prisons they've been all over the news, nationally, internationally, and then certainly here within our state. And so I want to keep that momentum going, because what I'm worried will happen is as the weather gets cooler, people will start to forget, and then Christmas will come and go, the spring will come and go, and next summer more people will be, frankly, dying inside of our prisons, being cooked by the dangerous temperatures. So yeah, the media has been off the chain. And what else? I've had my nephews this week, so that's been interesting too.
Right. It's not just like advocacy stuff and work stuff. It's like personal stuff too, appointments and doctor's appointments and kids being out of school and all kinds of things. So do you want to catch some people up on some big kind of news lately? I would love to tell everyone about Rosa. If I'm mispronouncing her last name, I don't do the J's.
Jimenez.
Yeah. So did time with her at Mountain View. She's a really sweet girl. She was fully exonerated this week. A court declared her fully exonerated. So she had been released about 2 years ago when she won her appeal, and now they've decided to drop all the charges. So her case was, she had been accused of the death of a toddler, shoving paper towels down his throat. It was just really ridiculous. And I would love if you could watch the documentary sometime, because it gives clips of her trial. And I believe one moment the DA said something to the effect of, well, she's much smarter than she looks. Yes, she's Mexican, but she's much smarter than she looked. Like it was like, what in the hell? Like, just blatantly. And at the time, Rosa didn't really know a lot of English, so it was just terrible. The whole thing. She spent almost 20 years in prison, and she is on a wait list for a kidney, because she was, had been diagnosed with kidney failure. And we all know how piss poor the medical care is in our prison system. So thank God she got out, and thank God those charges were dropped. So I just wanted to highlight that as something positive this week.
Well, we were so happy to hear that. This is how her name is spelled. Rosa Jimenez. So you guys can look up. Patricia's asking if we know what the name of the documentary is. Any idea, Toonche?
Oh, it's in one of the articles. Gosh, what was the article? You keep talking and I'm going to find it.
Okay, yeah, look it up. And Elaine is here. We're so happy to have you, Elaine. She says she rarely hears about women who are exonerated, especially when falsely accused about child abuse. And we have Hannah Overton. That's old news, right? But still very exciting. She's another Texas woman that got exonerated for a very similar charge, actually. So and we're so happy to have everybody on here. And Carrie is asking how your event went. I don't even know which event. Life
Man,
is moving
God,
so
it's so
fast.
fast, Gary. Which one?
It
I
has to be the
feel
one
like,
because we pre-recorded last week. She's talking about the night for
oh,
liberation and safety.
oh yeah. So I did go to the MART facility, which is operated by the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. I met with the girls through a program with Girls Empowerment Network. It was a group. It's a group for the girls to talk and share their feelings and do some social work stuff. So it was interesting. It was, I was sitting there listening to the girls talk, and they were 13, 16. They were teenagers, and I could just hear myself, Marci. It was like this girl, she was like, I just am frustrated because it's like I don't feel like they hear me. The therapist tells me, oh, you're going to do this, and that's what it is, and that's what you have to do to be better. And I'm like, that doesn't work, and I don't like that. And I said, oh my God, like, I know that some things are better in the system, but I just had this moment listening to the staff, and it was, imagine, Marci, one of the officers at Lane Marie that you weren't particularly fond of, that was just got under your skin. Imagine her sitting in your therapeutic group and interrupting and trying to interject all the time over the social worker. And I just felt like I was 15 again. So I didn't have any anxiety like I thought it would. I just felt so much like I just walked out of there knowing that our campaign to finish the five and to change the way that we administer justice and treatment to those kids, it just made me more resolved. Like, no, that stuff is exactly the same way as it was 30 years ago when I was there. I heard this girl literally saying the same things I have said over and over, that we're treated like we're not a person, like we don't know, like we don't have wants and needs. And it's just this very punitive way of therapy that is, you do A, B, and C, or D, or you're going to get consequences. The end, that's it, that's all. And so it just really touched me a lot. So it was it was a long day, but it was incredible to talk with the girls. So
I'm so proud of you for doing that, Jen, because it takes a lot of courage to go back into that kind of situation when you've come out of it and experienced so much trauma there. So, like everybody, we're all just so proud of you, honestly. And I can't believe during the recap, like I said, life has been moving so quickly. But I did get to speak at a youth rally this past
yeah,
weekend,
you did.
and my anxiety was high. It wasn't in a carceral setting at all. It's called Roses from Concrete. It's an annual youth rally at the end of towards the end of the summer before school starts. And my friend Nadia Kerr, she kind of she organizes that event, and she's incredible. I'm excited to kind of see where that movement goes that she's working on. But yeah, it was a room full of, I think, 13 to 16 to 17 years old. And I was intimidated, but it went beautifully. And it was just me sharing my story and my experiences. You can't really go wrong when you're just kind of being honest with that. So yeah, it was a good week. And Stephen's here. We're so glad to have you, Stephen. Thank you. He's reminding you all and reminding me to tell you, please hit that like button, hit the hearts, and comment, please. And when this is finished live streaming, we would really appreciate if you shared the video. That helps us so much. If you are listening to this podcast somewhere, we would truly appreciate for you all to put to leave a review. Yeah, thanks so much for that. And Elaine is reminding us to do some self-care, Jennifer,
Oh,
especially when we put ourselves in those kind of triggering situations. That's definitely important. So you put the article in the chat. I mean, you put it in our chat.
right. So you could
You
could
want me to
yeah,
do
you
what
could put
with
the
it?
title. It's called Mi Vida Dentro.
Oh,
Uh,
that's why you wanted it up there. I'm going to type it.
Mi
I'm going to
Vida
type it.
Dentro.
Mm,
And you can find that on YouTube. It is really impactful. It's a really good documentary. It's as good as the documentary on Melissa Lucio. So I encourage everybody to check it out.
I'm
And
putting
one more update that I know it's tough, but you did a video about it earlier, and that was Brandy Henry's death at Plain State Jail. So you want to tell everybody what we've found out this week?
so yeah, it's disheartening. And I was first, I'll just say that the name of Rosa Jimenez's documentary is scrolling across your screen if you're watching us. If you're listening to us, it's Mi Vida Dentro. Let me say that with my best accent. Um, so, Brandy Henry was a 35-year-old woman who lost her life in the Texas prison system. She had made it into the prison system, into the care of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice just a few short months after her arrest, which so she had just been arrested on April 26th. By July 6th, she was at Plain State Jail in Dayton, Texas. By July 10th, she was found, according to the death report, she was found unresponsive in her housing unit. So, Jennifer, you and I, we received, Lioness, our organization, received messages from the ladies that were incarcerated with her. Do you want to kind of talk about what some of those messages said?
Yeah. So essentially, we were kind of getting messages everywhere that someone had died at Plain State. And, the witnesses there said that she was exhibiting what seemed to be heat related symptoms. She was vomiting, she was crying, she was not well. She was, telling the officers that she didn't feel good. And so they found her unresponsive. Now, the ambulance came and got her, and so the women that were incarcerated there assumed that she had died right then. Well, we heard through an anonymous staff that no, she had not, and that they had been told she was on life support. And I looked her up, and I kept an eye on it for a while, and it was saying offsite medical on the TDCJ inmate search. And so we know that means that she was not at a correctional facility. She was at a hospital. For security reasons, they can't tell you which one, but it was close to Plain State. So I'm willing to bet they probably drove her all the way down to John Seeley. And, looked her up again. She was not in the system. So it means one or two things. She's been released or she's died. And, was able to get the report. And yeah, it was what Marci said. And by all accounts, looking at that report, no underlying medical conditions. It wasn't, no one unalived her. She wasn't suicidal. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. So what we've heard seems to match the dates and the times and the locations. So I can guarantee just from that, I know journalists have to verify stuff. And of course, the prison system is not going to say this is heat related, but it absolutely, absolutely was, Marci. And the fact that she was on life support, that means there's no activity. And so this isn't, everybody's suffering. And the people that have had heart attacks and died immediately right there. She didn't. She, for a couple of days, was on life support, apparently, supposedly. So it just really angers me. And I've, reached out to several media. It's just not getting the attention that I want it to. And I think that Brandy deserves. And So it's been rough. It's been rough. So we are our own media. So we just wanted to share with our community here, so that we acknowledge her and what she went through and what all the ladies at Blaine State Jail. It's a horrid facility to begin with, but certainly in the heat, it's worse.
Well, that's exactly right. It is a rough unit. It's a they hold state jail offenders there also, and I'm just using the very technical term of offender because that's what they're called by the state. But ladies that had committed state jail felonies, so they're doing a short amount of time, and there's kind of this scared straight attitude from the staff towards those ladies that carries over to the TDCJ ladies going to a more long-term facility. It's just rough all around, but that is the unit that I watched an egg fry on the day room floor. That unit was miserably hot. I just, that, the most hot that I've been my entire incarceration was on that unit. Um, yeah, so yes, prayers and love and all of that go out to her family. But in addition to that, that's just further motivation for us to keep fighting for what we fight for. So we're not just about prayers and well wishes. We're about demanding safe temperatures in our Texas prison system. And for sure, as far as Toonche go, and as far as the organizations that we're a part of, that absolutely, that fight is not going to stop until every single incarcerated Texan is housed in safe temperatures, period. So tonight, moving on, guys, tonight we are talking about the cost of incarceration as it relates to families, especially. How expensive is it to have an incarcerated loved one and show them the support that they need? And I'm not even talking about just money on your books, commissary money. I'm talking about even just the price of communication.
Right. The price of communication. Everybody was excited, Marci, when the girls got their tablets. But we knew that came with it was a double-edged sword, right? Like we knew that, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So on one hand, those tablets were provided free from the third-party vendor Securus. Hey, these are free. We're giving them to y'all free. And everybody's like, okay, what's the catch? Well, the catch is all the things to use on there are not free. There's a few free things like, the law library stuff and some very, very, very few free podcast things, not movies. But the email system and the phone on the tablets, it's pay for use, right? So loved ones have to pay for that. It adds up.
So let's back up just a tiny bit, because there were no tablets inside the Texas prison system. Now, while Toonche and I were incarcerated, I got out in the beginning of 21, and the tablets had started to roll out. There was like rumors that there were going to be tablets, but we had not seen any, and no women had seen any. I'm not even sure. I feel like the men's had started to roll out, but I'm not even quite sure about that. So all of this is fairly new, and so there are a lot of pluses, right? Because we were doing time with ladies that had never even held a smartphone.
Yeah.
And we're going to be coming home into their communities not knowing how to do any of that, right? And so that was definitely a plus. And then we thought about, okay, the phones in the dorm, there's usually like 4 phones and 100 women or 100 people, and so we thought, oh, they can call from their tablet. That's incredible. Like, there were a lot of pluses. But then as we're starting to see as time goes on, they're not all that it's cracked up to be. Right.
Yeah. Marci, my friend spent her whole their little stimulus money, right? That they're so excited to hold on and get. Girl, she spent all of that on movies. And I said, honey, you're going to have to, you're going to have to learn. Well, she'd been locked up since she was a kid, right? So she doesn't understand budgeting the same way you do as an adult. And it was a hard lesson for her. Nobody teaches you that on the inside. But I said, it's different when I have a job and I sit here and buy movies. But if I spend my whole paycheck on it, then I don't have any food or groceries, right? So they don't have jobs that they can say, well, at least it's my money. I made it. It's their loved ones. And it's hard, I think, for family members to not, you know, give more money. You want your loved one on the inside. I remember my ex-girlfriend told me, honey, I'm going to give you $100. I don't care if you spend it on all of it on M&Ms. I don't care if that makes you happy, honey. Then eat it till you're sick. You know what I mean? So I just feel like this falls on families. It falls on that desperation. It falls on the want and the scarcity, and that stuff adds up.
It absolutely adds up. And so the tablets have, they can purchase movies, they can purchase music, download music, similar to like an MP3 player, but they're paying for each song that they download on, right? They can purchase games. They can get monthly subscriptions to certain games. They can purchase podcasts. They can, so it's a lot of things that they can purchase. That's all. So that's all kind of extra, right? Like, you could still easily support your loved one and they wouldn't get any of that while they were there. And that would still be, but you would still want to be able to communicate with them. And this is where it gets tricky, and it can make it almost impossible for some families to communicate with their loved ones beyond the technological, that's
Mhm.
not the right word, is it? Beyond the technology issues that can prevent some families, but just the sheer cost of it. You can imagine if you're um, trying to put food on the table for your family in today's economy and pay your bills, and you still need your kids to be able to communicate with their mother or father, or you need to offer support to your sibling, you're going to pay those fees. So we can kind of dive into the cost of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I should have reminded you, but that voice memo that the woman left us at Lioness would be really good to play if you're able to pull that up, because that tore my soul in half. It, like, I cried. Like, I've had other people say, y'all posted that, and I just started crying because you can hear the woman's desperation. And that's what Marci is talking about. It's like, it's the cost of it, and it's, the financial cost of it, but we've got elderly people, and just not even elderly people, right? Like, people my age, or people that live in rural areas, they may not completely understand how, because Securus, that's website, and JPay, girl, I spent one whole day on the phone with those people until I finally got it all to work to integrate the way it needed to when they switched over and stuff. So just not being able to use the technology easy. It's not easy technology to use for some people, and how that can really affect communication with loved ones on the inside. But and hopefully you can pull that up. But let's talk about that cost. I love that Serena can call me straight from her tablet, so she doesn't have to wait in line or get into a fight over the day room payphone. But honey, she calls me over and over, back to back, which I love talking to her. But I'm like, she's like, okay, I need more money on the phone. I said, honey, you're going to have to call me once a day so I know you're alive in the heat. Uh, but again, I think it plays back into that desperation that loved ones and people on the inside have, that the company kind of feeds on. So tell folks how much a phone call is, Marci.
Well, I'm on mute because I was
Well,
looking for the audio on the other. So here I am. My girlfriend and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, trying to figure out exactly how, because it changed. There actually was a significant drop during my incarceration of the
right.
price of phone calls. And we felt like it was huge because it
Hmm.
went from um, my 20-minute phone call home costing $12 to costing 580 or something. And we thought that
Hmm.
was incredible. So $5.80 for that phone call. And I don't know the per minute and then per connection. I don't know that figure. I just knew how much it was for me for an in-state phone call. And then, but I just want you to think about, okay, so as a mother who's trying to maintain a bond with her children, um, I was wanting to call once a day. So even at $5 a day, $25 for 5 days. I mean, see what I'm saying? 35 times 4 weeks. Like we're looking at just for the phone call. This is nothing to do with mail, nothing to do with the e-messaging now. But,
Right.
that's a water bill or more
Yeah.
just for
I
that
mean,
phone
I
call.
can't even, Marcy, I can't even imagine, because you're right, the prices were higher while we were there. And thank God it is lower now, but that's been through a lot of lawsuits and a lot of pressure, right? Because Securus could afford to actually allow people to make free phone calls. In many states, they actually, that's a part of the contract. So, Securus makes a contract with TDCJ. They make contracts with county jails, which interestingly, I looked at the contract for Harris County, and the price of the calls was different. So, like, it's negotiable, and whether those calls are free are also negotiable. And we found out, you know, part of that deal with that contract came some other stipulations, some other goodies that the state got to utilize, which would also um, kind of help squeeze some more money towards Securus. And that is, well, we're just going to get rid of physical mail. Right? What other way to help start really hammering away to get loved ones to use their emailing system is to make physical mail just pointless. So that what they're going to do is you're going to send your mail to a central location. They're going to scan it. Securus, they've provided the equipment. So somebody's going to scan it, upload that picture to the individual's tablet, and they can keep it forever. They can keep the pictures forever. I don't believe that. There is capacity on those tablets, and there's capacity on those accounts, right? And the whole discussion about moms being able to hold pictures and tangible items from their children and letters are just different than text messages and emails. But TDCJ promised us 2-3 years ago, when they changed mailroom rules, that they would never do this. And they did it. I mean, I'm not shocked that they lied to us, but the quality of these scans are not that great, Marcy. They're not. Somebody's scanning that, slapping that on there, and then, and so what? Well, if she's not able to read the handwritten letters, I mean, I might as well just set up this email account and do it.
So with that, with just the setting up the email account, let's play the voicemail that you recently got regarding trying to set up that account. Hopefully this plays without flaw.
You're going to do it,
I'm
Marcy. Have
calling
faith.
because I have an incarcerated daughter that I've written to. We have had a wonderful writing relationship, and I am finding it impossible. I've gotten a Securus account set up, but I can't. That's all I can do. I can't add money to it. I can't do anything, and I just get sent around and around and around in a loop. I'm not computer savvy, and I'm feeling kind of desperate about this. And so I've heard you on the radio, and I'm wondering if you could help get me started on what to do about this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
She's
I mean,
feeling kind of desperate.
it
She's
still
feeling
kind
kind
of
of
makes me want to
desperate.
cry, Marcy, just hearing her voice, and I'm just imagining my my parents and my grandparents, like, the TDCJ, the prison system in Texas is saying this is for security. It's security. And magically they started posting all this random weird contraband drugs coming through the mail, like in just one thing after the other. When we kind of pushed back when they announced this, and it's like, give me a break. I don't even. So wait a minute. You want us to believe all this dope is coming inside through these through these pieces of mail, but you don't. But you're saying believe you when you say there's no heat related deaths. Like, I can't trust you at all with any information. So I don't believe.
Frankly, your word means nothing, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, because you have proven time and time again to not be truthful. They posted, Toonche, a picture of a supposed mailroom bust, and the package supposedly had, can I name the drugs on here? I don't know how sensitive our platforms are, but basically it had uppers and downers all together on the envelope. It tested positive for 3 different drugs on the envelope, and it was a envelope full of paper, a package of paper. Nothing found on the paper inside. So first of all, we're not denying that sometimes that is a way for illegal substances to get into the prison system. But the amount of illegal substances in the prison system, the percentage that comes through the mail is a very small percentage, very small. This is not going to solve the drug problem in the prison. This new mailroom policy is not about keeping drugs and contraband out of the prison system. It is about money. So then they post this. So why would someone spray only the envelope and none of the paper? And then why would they mix uppers and downers? And then the stamps or the envelope hadn't been processed through a post office.
Right.
It looked completely fraudulent. And let me tell you, if you want to do some shady stuff, get somebody a little more criminally minded, frankly, because I would have never posted that and claimed that it came through the mail. The envelope looked like someone had just thrown it together. at least pretend to mark the envelope like it came through the post office. Like it was just, I just honestly believe that it was an intentional post to further their agenda of proving that illegal substances are coming through the mail, and basically get drug dogs at your doors with your staff when they're coming into the system, because frankly, that's how most of it's done in our state and definitely where I was. So,
well, Marci, because then what is the next reason, right? When drugs continue to be rampant in the system, you're not addressing addiction, right? Number one. Number two, it's your staff. And it's a multiple reasons because of the staff, right? And a lot of it has to do with the quality of training and the people that you're hiring. And they're also not paid well, right? So I see the temptation. So, and until you address that, this is pointless. So just like during COVID, when they shut down visitation and they had put these new mailroom policies in place that were to control the contraband, the unidentified substances, which I have made clear over and over to people, that just means I don't know what this substance is. A lot of time it was glue, glitter, sometimes
perfume,
body substance, perfume,
lipstick kisses. I mean, that was a big thing with my kids, is I put the lipstick on and I kissed the letter. I have letters sent into me with my 2-year-old's little lip prints, just blobs on the paper, because back then they were allowing that in. By the end of my sentence, I was getting called to the roommate because my now 6 or 7-year-old daughter has kissed a letter to me, and they were showing it to me like this and shoving it in the envelope and sending it out.
And saying it was an unidentified substance, right? So they would use that number of how many pieces of mail they denied because of that and said, look at this number. And it's like, okay, but what is the number of that is actually identified as drugs? And quite frankly, it's really hard to trust your numbers. You won't even report deaths correctly. So, But what do we have to show? What did you have to show in COVID when you restricted the mail and you completely cut off outside visitation? Your contraband was higher than it ever had been.
There were
And
more reported overdoses in the
yes,
Texas prison system during that time.
and they know the bulk of it comes from the staff. And like you said, this digital rollout, keeping our facilities safe, has absolutely nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with money. Everything they earn on those tablets, Securus gives a cut of it to TDCJ.
Which is why the price is negotiable, which is why they can lower and raise, Securus can lower and raise their rates depending on which agency that they're working with, because how much does that agency want of a kickback? So the e-messaging, so part of it's great, right? We're getting data from the inside at very speedy. It's speedy. When the death happened, when Brandy got taken from Plain State Jail, we were hearing about that on the 11th. That happened on the 10th. We were hearing about that electronic message wise. So that's a plus. But each one of those electronic messages, one electronic message, like if I send you an email, is costing the cost of a stamp. How much is a stamp? 60 something
It's now
cents.
60 cents.
60 cents for one electronic email. So what happens is you buy those stamps in advance, but it's very tempting, just like a text message that you would send to your loved one. It's very tempting to send several of those a day. And I correspond with someone who's incarcerated that will send me an electronic message and then send me another one and just say, oh, I forgot to tell you, like, I thank you and I love you. And I want to hear those things, but I don't want to pay 60 cents again to hear that hear that message. It's just, it does not cost the agency 60 cents. It's an electronic message. Those could be 5 cents, honestly, and still they would still be making a profit. We're not talking about a profitable company. We're talking about a major corporation getting rich off of families who have incarcerated loved ones. And Amy's asking, so bringing that up on that note, she's asking if On the Rec Yard Women's Prison podcast can be heard on their tablets. So there's a couple of things. Toonche and I are pretty blunt about the way we feel about our prison system in this state and prisons in general. And so for that reason, we can't just, they won't just approve our entire lineup of podcasts, but we do have some that we are working on getting submitted. And so we are working on that. We have a couple of episodes that we'll play kind of in a roundabout way, and that will be coming in the next several months. But it won't be just the raw, what you guys are seeing out here. It will be the more lighthearted episodes, because that's the only thing that they're going to allow those folks to see that are incarcerated. They don't want them to be any more angry than they are, right? So
Marci, it's so difficult, right? Because it's like, still operating in the system that you want to tear apart and rebuild something new, right? Like, it's almost like my stuff with the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. Well, all of our stuff, because we all work on it. But, the system is still in place, and I still want to help the girls that are in there, but I don't want to be a part of the system. But the people in the inside need me. And it's like, we have to use the tablets. Like you said, there's these really great pros, but at the same time, it's capitalism. I mean, that's a huge part of the discussion, and that makes people feel real crazy when you start bringing up the heart of the problem. And it is that feeding on the same way parole attorneys do. It feeds on the desperation, the scarcity that we have when we're on the inside, and it feeds on it. It banks on it, literally. And that's the problem, because some people will say, well, don't put money on their books, or, don't accept the phone calls, or it is super hard. Even though I tell my loved ones on the inside, girl, I've been there, I understand. But you can't call you right now in the summer. You need to call me every day for just a few minutes. But honey, I know it seems like I'm made of money. I'm not. I live on a nonprofit budget, and I can't just keep that money eats up so fast. And it's almost like gambling. You know what I mean? It feeds something that you can't stop. And that's the problem. It's the system just really taking advantage of people's desperation for communication. And I probably would have spent a lot of money on movies too. But eventually Serena was like, man, dude, these movies are whack. Because they're buying $8 movies or Tubi movies. You know what I mean? The free movies that they're paying for. They got a couple of new releases, but she's like, well, I just got done. This got old. And I was like, yeah, you come to the end of the internet, honey. There's just so much scrolling and watching TV that you can do. But like I said, some girls I know that they continue to empty out their accounts on it.
And then I want to tell Hello Kitty has a good question about she's asking about a law that may or may not have been in play to let people out because the prisons are full. We're going to answer that at the end of the episode, and we're going to continue the conversation here. But I didn't want you to think that I wasn't seeing you in the chat there. I wanted to say even I have someone that's asking me, set the phone up. And I told my girlfriend, I'm not setting the phone up. I can't afford it. I mean, I just can't afford it. Like I'm already at my capacity of my budget, what I can spend there. Right. So it's tricky because we want to, it's very clear while you're incarcerated that the people who have family support and support on the outside are more successful in getting through their days there. I mean, that's just the way it is. The dorm, that's the privileged dorm where the people don't have any disciplinary cases. Those folks are getting visits. Those folks are lined up for phone calls. Those folks, their names are being called at mail call. And then, of course, me, I did my time pretty raw. So on the opposite end of that spectrum, being in solitary confinement at mail call, watching that pod boss's little skimpy hand of mail of mostly religious material. That's what's being passed around in that building, right? So it does make a difference. And also for their help when they get out, for them to be mentally stable and become the people that they want to be when they get out, they need that contact with us.
Yeah.
And that cost. It's at a cost.
I'm thinking, Marci, of just our day-to-day in there. And, I dreaded the weekends for some reasons, right? Because that was when I would really just stare out the window, especially when they started canceling rec and activities. It's just, I felt so pent up because my mind, it was just like, I should be home. Like that was the time that really messed with me. I like the late nights and us eating and making do in the dorm, but I hated the weekends because there was no mail. And mail call is what you live for every single day. Mail call. And girl, when you do just get a stack and it's just a bunch of pamphlets and newsletters, thank God our girls don't feel that way about our newsletter, but it just, I lived for it. And so it's kind of weird, right? Like that just disappears. And I found that to be an integral part of my day to survive. So it's like, do you just look forward to come back to your cell to check your tablet? I guess the same way we check our phones.
I guess so, Toonche. I don't know that. I just think that Monday through Friday in the evenings, that was prison.
Yeah.
Mail call lasted a couple hours. It wasn't just, it's not just a bam, 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 bam. I mean, the officer sitting in the day room. They would spend 20 or 30 minutes organizing the mail by bunk so they could call it an order, and then they would start and you would listen and everybody would kind of listen. I mean, it was a community event actually in there, and that is a funny feeling that might not be anymore.
So strange. It's, I guess it really would just be running back to your cubicle, checking your tablet, and I think it speaks to what we've been talking about to with reporters when they ask us about, well, what's the big deal about the digital rollout? It's like that. There are things that y'all are taking away that made our lives more humane and community focused and that help us get through the day. And this speaks to broader culture, Marci, with technology and us feeling so separate and isolated and just really polarized from each other. And we see what that's done to society. I feel like they're just making that even worse for the people on the inside. And without a sense of community or those tangible things or those things that make you feel connected, because I think there's a difference between feeling connected and the efficiency of technology. Okay, well, just because it's fast and we appreciate that, especially in emergencies, do we feel as connected as when we write handwritten letters? No. Do we feel as connected when we're all standing there waiting for mail call versus I just check my tablet when I get my cubicle? Like there's something about this that is taking away human connection.
Well, for certain, when I just think about handwritten letters from my kids with their handprints, with artwork, I mean, all of that. When I think about holding my pictures, I mean, I remember in my cubicle, I would set my mattress up. And so our sheet's tied on it. So if you set your mattress up, you could kind of tuck things in that sheet. And I would sit in my floor and handwrite my mail with my loved ones' pictures all tucked in that sheet. So it made it okay for me at that moment, right? Because it's not okay. There's nothing okay about being in that harmful environment, but there were moments that you could create a safe place for yourself, and that had a lot to do with paper mail, paper pictures. I just can't imagine the people going into the system right now are not going to have any photographs to hold. They're not going to have a photo album with their family's pictures, I mean, I had graded papers from my kids' school. I even my kids when they went to college, I had my son sending me college papers that he had submitted. I mean, yeah, it's a change, and it's about money. It's about big business. It's not about what's best for our community. It's not what's best to heal our incarcerated population. It's about how can we make more money.
Yeah. How can we already squeeze more money out of a population that has just barely enough to get by on anyway?
Well, and that's it. People often don't get visits because the cost of transportation, and so now there's video visits, and those cost money. Now I mean, it's just a whole thing. I'm a little bit nervous about the visitation, quite frankly,
Well,
Toonche.
let me tell you something. Praise God for Valerie Swanson. Okay. She's one of our more conservative legislators. She was on the Criminal Justice Committee in the House, and she, we worked a bit on a bill, testified on the bill that she got passed. It was passed. And so it ensures that TDCJ can never take away in-person visitation. And because, thank God she had the foresight and advocates had the foresight to look at that, because when they started doing video visitation, counties, when they started doing it, they got rid of in-person visitation because they're like, this is good enough. And then so people had to really rally around that and push back on that. It took a lot of work. And finally, county jails were told you have to have in-person. And so it was like, man, we better head this off now to make sure as a preventative measure that the state prison system never tries to do this, because I could see them doing it. So thank God that piece of legislation will be in effect September 1st, so it can ensure that they never lose their in-person visitation.
We cannot not talk about the price of commissary. People ask me often about how much is an appropriate amount to send for my loved one for their commissary for food? And so, what would your answer to that be, Toonch?
Whatever you feel comfortable sending, just know they need it. And if you can do more, then do more, because it's just, especially I sent someone an ecom, which is you can pre-order these items on their website and they go pick it up from commissary. It doesn't come out of their spend limit that they have when they go to the store to commissary. And looking at those prices, I'm like, good Lord, a bag of coffee. And of course, I have to remind them, Marci, y'all, inflation is real. It's happening to us as well. Prices, it's expensive. Don't send me down the rabbit hole of the end of the world. But it's the prices for them are even worse because they price gouge them. And their quality of the items they're getting. Me and Alexa used to say, well, we're making banquet gourmet meals off of gas station food, because that's what it is.
It is gas station.
It is gas station food. No wonder I go across the street all the time. You see the pictures I send y'all. I'm like, this is dinner. And it's a can of Beanie Weenies and some Doritos and a Dr. Pepper and bean dip. And it's like, this has been my life for 20 years, 25 years. It's expensive though.
It is. I'm putting a copy of the price list in the chat because Stephen asked if we had a commissary price list, but it definitely is gas station style food. And the problem is there often is not enough calories served. That's part of it. There's often not enough edible food in the chow hall. This time of year, it's really hard to go to the chow hall because your dorm is about 125 degrees. And then you walk out with the sun bearing, you have to get fully dressed. So you're putting on these thick, somebody compared it to a Carhartt material. You're putting on the pants and the shirt. Yeah, you're putting that on, very non-breathable. And then you have to stand in line where there's no air circulation. And then you're having to go stand in line in the hot sun to get into the chow hall. And the chow hall is even hotter than your dorm because they have the dishwasher running, they have the ovens running, it's humid because of the dishwasher room, the air is thick and hard to breathe. I mean, you are just, if you're healthy, you're pouring sweat. If you're not healthy, you're not sweating and you're fixing to pass out. And we see both of those at the chow hall. So in August, it's really hard. It's really hard.
Marci, remember the fiscal year always starts in September. So their budget is almost, I remember one summer that we literally, so you've got the slots on your tray. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots on your tray. We only had 3 of those slots with food. One of those slots being 2 pieces of bread. So there were 2 months that we were essentially eating pork noodle with sweet potatoes, and not the sweet potatoes like the yams, just like from the field. And or beans. That was 2 months. That's all we ate, and some biscuits in the morning and some pancakes, because they didn't have any more money in their budget. And let's too remember that state jails do not have 3 meals on the weekend. You only get 2. So they feed you early in the morning and they feed you around brunch, right? And that's it.
11. I remember.
You remember that at Henley?
Yeah, so I remember that at Henley, and I remember that at Plain State. They started that right when I entered the system at Plain State, and we ate in the morning. And you couldn't take anything back, but we were like, it was crazy. You couldn't take any food back, but you have to eat something between 11 a.m. and the time that you go to sleep. So people would be like trying to stuff bread or something. And there, if you got caught at Lane Murray, if you got caught, you were probably getting a write-up. You're probably getting a disciplinary case. But at Plain State, if you got caught bringing food from the chow hall, they would make you stand outside the whole rest of the chow serving, which that unit was huge and it ran really slow, and make you hold it in the air. So you would be like, you'd see girls standing out there holding a piece of bread. And it was just a way to humiliate
Oh, sure.
us, right? And it's not, I just want to say, it's not for stealing extra bread. It's for
What
taking
was
the
on your
bread that
tray?
was given to you
Yeah.
and trying to save it for later because we knew we would be hungry later. So that's the kind of thing. I think this is Kristen asking, is there still a limit on how much money your family can put on your books? So I think that it's 500. Is that right?
Well, so they'll freeze your account. So you always want like it to be in, if you're going to get like a large amount of money, you want it to be broken up, because if there's one sum that's coming in over 500, they're going to freeze the account and investigate, and that could take 2 or 3 months, and they can't use their commissary account at all. And Elaine, yes, we did get toilet paper and tampons. However, that was never, ever, ever enough. So they sold it on commissary. So we would
Yes.
stack up on that if you had money, of course, right? If you're indigent, you're not able to go to the store. Talking about another way, you live for mail, visitation, and commissary. And I'm telling you, if those things are, you don't have those things, your life is a nightmare. It's a nightmare there.
You get toilet paper at Lane Murray, you get 3 every 2 weeks. So it's like on Saturdays is tissue issue. The first and third Saturday, you get 2 rolls. The second, fourth, and fifth, you get 1 roll. So sometimes if it was 5 Saturdays in the month, it would really mess you up because you would get 1 roll on the 4th week, thinking you were going to get 2 the next time, and you would only get 1, and you'd be out of there. It was the old schools, they stocked up on toilet paper. And then, I mean, you have things like people stealing toilet paper from their workplaces in prison and bringing it back because it's a necessity. It's something that you have to have. It's just like creating criminal behavior, honestly. I want to answer this. I'm going to try to scroll up and find the question really quick because Stephanie was asking, she said, have y'all heard of any laws that are being passed, or not even laws, but policies or whatever, that they are letting people out sooner since the prisons are so full, or how they are doing good time and flat time? And I want to say first, before I'm going to let Toonche handle this, but I want to say that my entire incarceration, this rumor floated around every couple months. And some people would get really hyped up about it. And even from staff, even officers would be like, yeah, I think they're going to be letting a lot of people out. Prisons are overcrowded. I think, oh, they closed a certain unit. I think they're going to be letting a lot of people out. So Toonche, go for it.
Yeah, we would refer to this as the big Christmas kick out. It's one of those urban legends that exist in probably all prisons, but certainly Texas. Our good time and work time, we call it monopoly money. It doesn't exist for people with aggravated charges, and even those that, it bumps up their eligibility for parole, it does not mandate release. So when I got done with my time, I'm sure when Marci got done with her time, my flat time and my good time and my work time, because you still accrue it, I had over 300% of my time done. So it just means nothing. Now, in terms of laws, there's a bill that's always every session about the good time, making that actually count towards, bumping up your parole eligibility date. It was left pending in committee. And, I remember some people were really angry. Like, I don't understand why Carl Sherman didn't fight for his bill to get out of committee. Well, what happens is that if legislators know it's not going to pass committee, they don't ask the chair to call it to a vote. They just leave it because it looks worse when it's been, voted down. So he just left it there because he didn't have the votes on the committee. It is a bill that it's just, I hate to sound like Debbie Downer. It's not going to happen in Texas. And a large part of the problem is victim rights groups. And I understand this point. I really do. You're telling me that the person that was responsible for my daughter's death, I'm using this as an example, I knew that he was sentenced and he was going to do 30 flat years, and now you're suddenly telling me that's changed and he's eligible for parole in 10 years. You know, it's that sense of, you know, that's not fair. That's not what happened at the trial. That's not what happened. I've made peace with it. And now that's the huge argument there, because we would want this to be retroactive, right? We wouldn't want to be just moving forward, this to be the case, but retroactively. And it's just not going to happen. Victim groups are heard, and not always, I don't think, just out of the gate just respected, but they do have a lot of sway when it comes to good time being counted.
We have another question from somebody watching on LinkedIn. Ikeem says, how was the law library? So Lane Murray had a law library, and my girlfriend and I actually went up there often to see each other and to study about, once that Pac Wallace unit lawsuit happened with the heat, man, we were studying that hardcore. So we didn't know it then, but we were preparing ourselves for our work now while we were there. But what do you know about the law library, Toonche?
Oh, yeah. So, first of all, that's a meetup place, because you can request to have a legal visit with another incarcerated person as long as you can show you're working on legal work. But, you know, they get real crazy with us girls because they want to stamp out that lesbianism. But a lot of times, no, we really were going to help each other. And I went often to read all of the policies. I would sit there once a week and just go hang out and read all of the policies, the chaplain, the way the unit operated, all the TDCJ rules. I wasn't as involved with like looking up the law stuff as I was more concerned with like the policy and procedure part of it. But we had a pretty thorough law library. It's mandatory that there be one on every unit. A lot of that stuff is now they're able to access that on the tablet. So they were looking up bills. They figured out how to look up bills. And some of the confusion and some of the, you know, misinformation about a law has passed kind of was not the same this time go around, because the girls were like, oh, we looked at it and we saw that it just stayed in the Senate. And it's like, well, thank God that at least they have a way to look up stuff. So they're not just listening to the lady that got up in chapel and said, good time bill passed. And it's like, girl, session is over. And no, that didn't. So they've been able to utilize the tablets for law library stuff.
Toonche, we are about at our time, but I wanted to just mention this. Kristen says that they wouldn't allow anyone on psych watch to have sanitary items. And in her county, or in a county that she's aware of, they were given small puppy pads. We were in our psych, we were naked. At our crisis management center, we had no clothes.
Right.
No panties, no pants, no clothes. You were naked. And if you were on your cycle, you had to first prove that you were on your cycle. I'll leave that to your own imagination, how one would prove that. And then you were given a maxi pad. It opened. You wouldn't get a closed sanitary one. They would open it for you and hand it to you. How you kept it in place I'll leave that to you. You have no clothes. So, and then in order to get a clean one, you had to then show the soiled one. So you're literally holding up a dirty, soiled maxi pad to the officer. So if you didn't want to commit suicide before that scenario, you certainly did after that. I have been there and done that. So do we have final thoughts on a better note than that?
Well, I'm thinking, what topic do we want to do next week? Maybe we do something a little bit more lighthearted.
Have to.
We've been hitting it heavy lately.
Yeah, maybe we could just talk a little bit about Patriot Paws and then about different pets, because we've had that request a few times, and that's something Lauren Johnson had requested.
Right. Yeah, we can talk about all the little pets that we had, whether they were insects or animals or other humans.
And we are always, yeah, we are absolutely always open to suggestions, open to questions. You guys hit either one of us up on our On the Rec Yard pages or on our personal pages with any suggestions for shows, any questions you want us to answer on here. But we are live every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Make sure hit that share button when we close. Do not, and everybody sees your silly flag back there, your
I
Taylor
just want
Swift
everybody to know I got a
flag.
new Taylor Swift flag.
Yes,
on the
in
wall.
case you didn't notice, if you're watching, Toonche does have a Taylor Swift flag new in her apartment. So we'll talk about animals, and we'll talk about animals in prisons, horses, dogs, and other creatures that we have in there. How about that?
That sounds good.
Okay, until next time, we will see you. We will see you same time, same place next week, right here on the Rec Yard.